Hey, welcome into the Stinkin Truth podcast alongside my partner, Mike Evans. I am Mark Schler. Thank you so much for downloading and listening and subscribing and doing all those things that you do. Mike, how are you, my friend?
You know, I was thinking about the crazy story of Jalen Hurts and the journey. Do you think he ever could have imagined when he was benched for Tua Tagovailoa during a nationally televised playoff game that eventually he would end up as the highest paid quarterback in the NFL?
I don't imagine. I don't know. I almost can't imagine. And at the same time, having been around him as many times as I've had a chance to be, and doing as many Philadelphia games as I've had a chance to do, the guy he's a fascinating dude, right? He's stoic. Like, he doesn't give anything away. He's a stoic dude. The son of a coach. He's been coached hard his whole life. And I always said one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen, and it's why I love sports. It's why I love competition. It's why I love being part of a team, is here's a guy that's 25-2 in his career, gets benched at halftime of a national semifinals game against Georgia, I believe, right? And he gets benched, and at that point, you realize as this hotshot freshman comes in Tua, you probably realize that that's it. I'm not ever going to get a chance to win my job back. And I'll never forget it. Like, I'm watching the game. Tua throws a touchdown. And Jalen Hurts comes screaming down the football field to celebrate that touchdown like he threw it. You know what that takes internally? Because most guys and most people would be moping on the sideline.
Or the polite golf clap.
Yeah, feeling sorry for themselves. What it takes to celebrate, like, think about this in your life. I mean, in any walk of life. Tell me a time where you've celebrated somebody else's success like it was your own. Because it just doesn't happen. Unless it's your kids. It really doesn't happen outside of sports. And it's one of the things I love. It's one of the things I loved about playing offensive line. I've never scored a touchdown at any level. But every touchdown we scored, I felt, that there was that excitement for us as a team and the guy who scored it. It's amazing. So now you have to go finish your career elsewhere at Oklahoma. Then you get drafted and you're a second-round khaki pants quarterback to back up a guy who is a first-rounder who's going to be the savior of a franchise in Carson Wentz. You end up taking over that starting job. You have all kinds of question marks whether you can play or whether you can't play in year two. Can you ever be the guy that can throw yourself back into a game, can throw yourself into and last year you lose a Super Bowl in which you were spectacular. And the journey is incredible, and now you're the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League.
How is he viewed in that room, in that building, by his teammates?
He's loved because he is, like I told you, I'll tell you a story. So I'm doing a game, and like one of my big deals was trying to get him to smile. In the first year, I never got him to smile, right? It's just like the guy is stoic. Last year, I get him week one, and we're talking, and I say something that's, I can't even remember what I said, but like I saw, and I go, "Oh, saw your teeth. I just saw your teeth." And, he starts like laughing. And we get done with the meeting, and the PR guys come to me and go, "Thank you. Like, thanks for doing that." Like, we try to get him, but like, he is so honed in and so focused and so, like, not uptight, but he's just, like I said, he's just very stoic. And one of the first times I interview him, this goes back 2 years ago, I guess, not last season, but the season, maybe the 2020 season. I've got San Francisco at Philadelphia. And so I want to know, like, I'm always trying to educate myself about football in general, and I want to know what it is you guys do and how you go about your business, And so I say to him, I said, "Hey, Jalen, tell me about the RPO game. Like, what are your reads? What are you looking at? I just walk me through, because it's foreign to me. Like, we didn't do a lot of that, in my NFL career. So walk me through the RPO game." And he just looks at me, and he goes, No.
No.
And I'm like, what? Like, no, maybe you don't understand. Maybe I'm thinking to myself, did I not phrase the question correctly? Like, did he not get it? And so I rephrased the question and basically asked him to walk me through what his reads are in the RPO game and how he decides when to hand it off or when to throw it and who he's looking at beyond the defensive end but into the linebacking core and all that kind of stuff. Like, so I rephrased the entirety of the question, and he just looks at me just like deadpan. No. And I'm like, this is the national television broadcast. I'm just trying to get so I can explain it to the viewers like that. And he goes, no. He goes, your cousin's with the coach. I go, what? He goes, your cousin's with that coach. What are you talking about? Shanahan.
Oh,
and I go. No, we're not.
No,
I go.
You're
I
more
played
like an adopted son,
right? I go. I played for his dad, and I've known Kyle since he's 14.
Yeah.
But like,
that's true.
But he was like, here's a kid that is quiet, like he just like I said, stoic, quiet. But he had researched me before he comes into the meeting, right?
You were a San Francisco 49er Trojan horse.
Right, exactly. So he's like, I'm not telling you jack squat. And
That's awesome.
I mean, I just appreciate the kid. He is you want to talk about a grinder, hard worker, and the guys on the team love him. They really do, man. And the coaches love him. He just is, he's special and good for them because when you go back, Adam Schefter, our buddy Adam, printed up his salary over the next couple of years. So he signs this. This is why the salary cap is such a freaking joke to me. It is such, I mean, like when they don't want to pay you, they cry salary cap. Oh, we can't pay you the salary cap. It's so restrictive. We can't build a team if we pay our quarterback. It's horrible. How are we going to sign anybody else? Did you see the numbers on this thing? Like the first year, this year, he's counting like $6 million against the cap. Next year, it's like $13 million. Then it goes up to $21 million. And in 2027, it's $31 million, $32 million. How? You just signed a $255 million contract, all this guaranteed money. You're making $51 a year over Aaron Rodgers' $50. And how all of a sudden is it only $6 and then $13 million?
And by the way, during that time, the cap is going to be going up huge in the NFL. Good news for all NFL fans out there because your team is going to have a lot of money to spend under the cap over these next few years because the cap is just going to take off.
It does go to show you, though, drafting well, identifying the guys that you want, getting them under contract, and then extending. Think about this. In 2027, when he's scheduled to make $32 million, or count $32 million against the cap. If he plays and does what they think he's going to do, you know what they'll do? They'll just rip it up and re-sign a new one.
Yeah.
And limit their cap hit once again. I mean, it's amazing what they've been able to do. Howie Roseman has done a phenomenal job of manipulating the cap, building a football team. They've done a great job of not only building an offensive line, but they've got players behind players. Like they've just got such a great system of identifying and then developing their players. And think about this. They drafted Carson Wentz in the second round and realized after the injury, or second overall, excuse me, and realized over time, it's not the right answer. And we can move on. And you manage your cap well enough, and you do a good enough job drafting everywhere else. And they went and got A.J. Brown from Tennessee because Tennessee couldn't figure out how to get that done. They have just absolutely dominated that part of football.
So when you look at Jalen Hurts, he's now the highest paid quarterback. But where does he rank among your top quarterbacks in the NFL? Okay, so where does he fit? Everybody can play along at home. Where would you put Jalen Hurts? Who goes ahead of him?
Well, I mean, I think you put Mahomes ahead of him. I think people would put Burrow ahead of him. I think people would probably put Herbert ahead of him. Aaron Rodgers ahead of him. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think just as a pure
Mahomes, Burrow, Allen. Anybody else? So you go Herbert?
Well, I think there's still this aspect of, can you consistently win? Can you bring our team a victory playing from the pocket? Like being just a pure pocket guy. When those things get shut down, and I think there's a lot when you look at Philadelphia that would say, okay, when it comes to Jalen Hurts, as phenomenal as he is, we got the best O-line in football. We've got an incredible running game with 3 different running backs, but our quarterback run, our regular run, our RPO game, all these things. And, oh, by the way, we've got one of the best, most underrated tight ends in football in Dallas Goedert. We've got one of the best receivers in football in A.J. Brown. We drafted another guy who is an absolute killer in Devontae Smith. We've got, the Quez Watkins who can stretch the field. We've got, like their level of talent across the board on that entire offense it's incredible. It really is. And so I think that you start to look at those things and you start to kind of parse and say, well, yeah, he's done an incredible job, but look at what he's got around him and all that kind of stuff.
So not top 5 quarterback.
I probably
just outside.
Yeah, he's top 10, no question. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people that would put him in the top 5, and I'm okay with that. I just am saying I think that most see, I look at him and you said Josh Allen. I'd put him ahead of Josh Allen. Because
Bills Mafia is not going to like this.
Well, but they essentially run, like, people don't look at Josh Allen like a running quarterback. I mean, you watch, I guarantee you, if you put him up there, you put the stats up, he's got as many, if not close to Jalen Hurts. Like, he's over 750 yards rushing. I bet you they're pretty damn close as far as yards rushing are concerned. So, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another. He's probably right there at the top 5.
This contract for Jalen Hurts, what does it mean for Lamar Jackson? Because you're looking at all that matters ultimately. I don't want to hear about the $250 million contract for Jalen Hurts. It's all about the guaranteed money. And the guaranteed money for Hurts is about $170, $175.
Uh-huh.
Still not Deshaun Watson guaranteed money.
Right.
So is this good news or bad news for Lamar Jackson and what he wants?
Well, I would say that Lamar Jackson ain't getting the Deshaun Watson contract. It's just not going to happen. And so then you've got to start looking at that guaranteed money that the market has been kind of set with Kyler Murray last year, Russell Wilson, now Jalen Hurts, and whoever else signed a deal, Daniel Jones, and you've got to start looking at that and saying, okay, what is equitable for me? And I understand MVP and all that stuff, but the bottom line is you've won 1 playoff game, and the last 2 years you've missed 5 games each year. Sorry, you know what that's called? It's called leverage. And I get people on social media.
Oh, we're going to get to that. Hold on to that.
Okay.
Hold on to that thought, because I do want to get there because this is juicy. But is Lamar Jackson more in the $140, $150 million category, the Kyler Murrays, the Russell Wilsons, or is his benchmark now Jalen Hurts up in that 170, 175 range?
I think based on injuries, it's in the area of Russell Wilson, and it's in that area.
Okay.
And ultimately, like, this is an extension for Jalen Hurts, but ultimately, look at Jalen Hurts and you think, all right, well, like, what does it all mean for Lamar Jackson? I mean, you're going to have to understand that Jalen Hurts is going to renegotiate this contract if he plays like you think he's going to play. Very much like when we talked about this when Mahomes signed the 10-year, $500 million deal. There's no way he's seeing the end of that. Right. That's going to be something that's consistently renegotiated time and time again. And so I think for Lamar, you got to get a contract, and then you got to outperform that contract and re-sign another one and another one. And that's what they're saying is, we don't think that you can do that based upon your injury history and based upon the style with which you play unless you change that style. And one thing I'll say about Jalen Hurts, even though he still runs the ball a lot and they still have a lot of that quarterback design run, that dude as a passer grew exponentially last year. And they got a lot of weapons around him, but they've got a lot of weapons that they've built their team that way.
So and this isn't inadvertent because Mark doesn't do anything inadvertently. So Ben Roethlisberger got involved in a big debate with some comments he made with Lamar Jackson fans. Right. He wasn't complimentary of Lamar at all. And you decided to inject yourself into this as well.
Sure.
So now it's you and Ben hearing it from Lamar fans.
Well,
Want to bring everybody up to date on this?
Okay, so Ben essentially told the truth. Hey, with Lamar, you're bringing an extra safety down, maybe 2 safeties down, and you're worried about not him picking you apart from the pocket. You're worried about his legs and his ability to run and do all those things. That's what teams try to shut down. That's the way they look at Lamar. And, of course, all Lamar Jackson apologists go crazy over this, all crazy on Ben. And then I get these analytics nerds that throw out Lamar has a better quarterback rating from the pocket than Ben Roethlisberger, which to me, again, it's like me saying, and this is what I said, I made a little video, and it's like me saying that, hey, Shaquille O'Neal, his career field goal percentage was 58 point whatever percent. Kobe Bryant's was 44%. Therefore, Shaquille O'Neal's a better shooter than Kobe Bryant. That's how you use that statistic. It's so stupid. And then I get a bunch of the apologists that come out and go, that's not it. They don't play the same position. Well, neither do Ben and if you want to be technical, neither do Ben and Lamar Jackson. Yeah, they both play quarterback, but one of them is thrown against, 8, 9-man boxes with free access to the outside one-on-one at all times. One is thrown against 6 and 7-man boxes where they're dropping everybody into coverage. It's a completely different offense. And so to sit there and intimate that Lamar is the thrower that Ben is, you don't know jack shit about football. You don't know anything if that's what you think. It's insane. So then I get all these people coming after me they've never given him any weapons. No, you say it all the time. Does the quarterback make the weapons, or do the weapons make the quarterback? They didn't give him any weapons. Hayden Hurst was a first-round tight end that they drafted for him. Marquise Brown was a first-round wide receiver. Bateman was a first-round wide receiver. Boykins was a third-round wide receiver. Remember, this is all Dobbins was a second-round running back. This is all since 2018 when they drafted Lamar. But, they've never given him a weapon. Oh, my goodness, he's never gotten anything. Woe is me. Lamar has never been taken care of. What are we going to do about Lamar? It's like Nancy Kerrigan. Why? He's never been taken care of. It's such bullshit. And then on top of it, they're going, why do no teams? Why? It's collusion. It's obviously collusion. You're against, you're against Lamar. And really, one thing you have to understand is the way the Baltimore Ravens built this football team. There are these things called Y tight ends and things called H tight ends. H's are the guys who, it's what college football produces today. Is the guy that goes in motion, the guy that spreads out outside the numbers or in the slot, right, and is running routes and doing all that stuff. The Y's, the old typical, my day, they line up on the line of scrimmage and beat people to a pulp, right? And now you get all the time, quit using tight ends to block defensive ends, that whole thing. Well, the way the Baltimore Ravens constructed their football team is they're constantly in 2 tights, 2 backs. Their fullback is 6'3", 313-pound transition. He transitioned from defensive line. That transition's a bad word nowadays. But he transitioned from D-line to fullback. He's one of one in the NFL. They don't make him that way anymore. And so oftentimes you don't even play with wide receiver. You play with 1 wide receiver, maybe 2. So the whole thing is, if I take Lamar on as another football team, my roster isn't built that way. My roster doesn't have multiple blocking tight ends on it and a fullback and multiple. Like, it's not built that way. So teams look at it and go, well, are we going to give up 2 first-rounders and sign him to the deal he wants and then go out and try to reconstruct our football team? And then the last thing I'll say, and maybe I should say more, but the last thing I say is, then what are you going to do with your offensive coordinator? Because the offensive coordinator operates, out of 3 wides or spread offense, and that's not what Lamar has played in, and so now do you fire your offensive coordinator and go get Greg Roman because Greg Roman implemented an offense? And by the way, I get this all the time too. Well, he had to play in Greg Roman's offense. Well, maybe, just maybe. Oh, gosh. Now, this is going to be controversial. Do you think they hired Greg Roman because he could implement an offense that Lamar could run? To take advantage of Lamar's skill set? How good was Colin Kaepernick after Greg Roman left San Francisco? He wasn't.
So I feel like
it just pisses me off.
I feel like there's a deeper-rooted issue here because you certainly come across as a Lamar Jackson hater.
I love Lamar. I think Lamar is a phenomenal athlete. I think he's a phenomenal young man.
But there's something deeper here about, I think, the way that you look at quarterbacks and the way that quarterbacks are hyped up that bothers you.
What bothers me,
because your criticism of Lamar, the quarterback, not the athlete, not the leader, but as the quarterback, it speaks to something else. What is it?
Okay, it doesn't speak to anything else. It speaks to the ignorance that people have toward football. The ignorance that you can you're just like saying, okay, this is what this guy has done his whole career, right? But now I'm gonna make him something that he hasn't been. And listen, he may develop into that. Like I said, the kid is smart. He's an unbelievable leader. He is so much fun to talk to. He's a great kid. But they put him in an offense that they felt like he could operate. That's what they did. And to sit there and bash the Ravens, who moved back up in the draft to take him, and then remember, man, this was an offense that was predicated on Joe Flacco, and Joe Flacco gets injured, and Lamar comes in, and at the time it's Marty Morningwig, and they completely changed the entirety of the offense. And Joe Flacco got criticized because he goes, I did a game, 2018. When Joe Flacco got hurt, it was the first time that Joe Flacco was a healthy scratch. He got back after 8 weeks on IR or whatever, and he was a healthy scratch. They decided to stay with Lamar and the offense they were running in, and people were criticizing Joe for not being a mentor. And Joe's like, how am I going to mentor him? Like, nothing that we do in this offense was anything I ever operated. Right. It's completely different. But I'll give the Ravens a ton of credit that they changed the entirety of what they were doing to fit what Lamar could do. And honestly, to fit Lamar's skill set, which is, I've never seen a dude on tape, Michael Vick was the last guy I saw do this, that made NFL players look like JV players. Mm-hmm. The guy is absolutely incredible.
But what I still ultimately hear is that you believe that there's a certain standard when it comes to playing quarterback in this league, that no matter how athletic you are, no matter what you can do with your legs, that there's still something that you have to be able to do when it comes to playing quarterback, especially from the pocket, that you just don't feel, hype aside, that Lamar Jackson possesses. I mean, you even talked about Jalen Hurts earlier in this podcast about the idea that even Hurts had to get to a certain level to match what you believe the standard is still, even though the style of quarterback is changing more and more, there's still a standard that you hold them to.
Well, there's no question that when you get to we're talking playoff football and you're getting to all those things, you've got to be able to dissect the defense from the pocket. That's still part of it. And I understand
when the other team knows that that's what you have to do.
I understand that the game is changing, and I understand the athletes that are coming out of college right now. It's going to continue to swing more toward college football. I get all that. I completely understand that. The point is the misinformation from people who played this game and people who analyze this game and the stat nerds bothers me. it bothers me that all of a sudden that this argument becomes about race, because it's not. About collusion, it's not. About, like, to sit there and say, well, it's about race. 70% of this league is black. The highest paid quarterback in this league is black. Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. It's not about that. And it's not about collusion, because I guarantee you, if it was Mahomes, if it was Justin Herbert, if it was Joe Burrow, if it was, whoever, like, and they were in the same exact situation, there'd be 15 teams lined up. And by the way, it's not 32 teams. The Kansas City Chiefs aren't looking for a quarterback. The Denver Broncos aren't looking for a quarterback. Arizona's not looking for a quarterback. Philadelphia ain't looking for a quarterback. We can go. Buffalo ain't looking for a quarterback.
Bills, Cincinnati.
Jacksonville's not looking for a quarterback. Yep. So it's not 32 teams. And then ultimately, the other thing you have to understand is, okay, so we're gonna go to Lamar. Can he operate with the personnel that we have? We don't know. Is it sustainable? Well, no, it's not, because he's missed 10 games the last 2 years, so we don't think it's sustainable. I get this one too, people all over me. If you did any research at all, idiot, you would know he got hurt in the pocket twice. Well, let me ask you this. The more you run, the more susceptible you are to injury. Well, he doesn't get hit. He doesn't get hit hard. Well, you get 4 bodies that fall on top of you. Do you think that has something to do with the overall wear and tear on your body? When you're cutting and stabbing and doing this, that, and the other, and spinning out of things, do you think that has a toll on your body over a long period of time? And the answer, of course it does. So I understand that you got hurt twice in the pocket, but the bottom line to me is that doesn't matter, because it's just leverage. You get hurt. I mean, nobody knows more about leverage than I do when it comes to injuries. You're a warrior. Oh, you're tough. Oh, my gosh, the things you do. Oh, I can't believe you came back and played all that. Oh, we can't pay you, right? I mean, you've been hurt too much. I know you show up every Sunday, but you can't, that's the way it works. So I understand that he got hurt in the pocket, but I also understand the style of play that he presents is one of those styles that people don't think is sustainable. And until he proves otherwise, so there's just a lot of different factors that go into Lamar and why I think he'll be a Baltimore Raven ultimately. And I hope that this contract where, Jalen Hurts with his agent negotiated a deal that's the biggest deal in NFL history, but still fits in some parameters that fit the team, and that he can go back to them in 3 years or 4 years and say, hey, let's do it all again. Let's run it back if he continues to play. But the ignorance and the perpetuation of ignorance on just quarterback play in general irritates me.
Well, you and Ben Roethlisberger have learned something. You guys you're brothers now, because you now have learned. You go after Lamar Jackson, and that's like going after Taylor Swift. Right? The Swifties out there.
Yeah, that's bad football.
So the Lamar Jackson football fans, they don't want to hear from Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah. They don't want to hear from you.
No,
you guys are on their list.
Which is fine. If you don't want to hear it, or you don't want to know the truth, then this is called the Stinkin Truth podcast. If you don't want to know the truth, don't listen. Right? You want to be offended, you want to be hurt, you want to be I get it. Sally's.
Y and an H?
Why? And an H.
You must have been a riot doing YMCA back in the days. You must have had that nailed down, huh?
Yeah. This kind of podcast gets you canceled. Yeah. Truth gets you canceled. Well, all right. For everybody involved,
keep spitting it, man. Keep spitting it.
Everybody involved in the Stinkin Truth podcast, man, we appreciate you guys. I hope that explains it some. And by the way, just on the way out, not that anybody will hear this, I love the kid. I think Lamar is phenomenal.
Just business. It's just business.
Yeah, exactly. For Mike, I am Mark. We'll talk to you guys next week. Or later on this week. We'll still tell you this week.
Yeah, another one this week. Yeah.
Okay. All right. See ya.